अज्ञानतिमिरन्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकय चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरुवे नमः। श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूप कदा मह्यं ददाति स्वपदान्तिकम्। वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरु श्रीयुतपदकमलं श्रीगुरुं वैष्णवांश श्रीरूपं सागरजातं सहगण रघुनाथान्वितं तं सजीवम् साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनसहितं कृष्णचैतन्यदेवं श्रीराधा कृष्णपादान् सहगणा ललिता श्रीविशाखान्वितांश नमः ॐ विष्णुपादाय कृष्णप्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्त स्वामिन्निति नामिने। नमस्ते सारस्वते देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देश तारिणे। हे कृष्णा करुणा सिंधु दीनबंधु जगतपते गोपेश गोपिका कांत राधा कांत नमस्तुते। तप्त कांचन गौरांगी राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये। वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यस्य कृपा सिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद। हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे। Hare Krishna. So welcome to the Manah Shiksha series. Yesterday we were discussing the commentary of Bhakti Goswami Maharaj. We briefly touched upon the commentary of Sachinandan Maharaj. There were some important points. And then we began the discussion on Bhakti Goswami Maharaj commentary. Maharaj begins discussing how attachment is attained through mercy. And in this verse specifically, he is mentioning, you worship Radha and Krishna, Praje Radha Krishna, because they are giving something very rare. Swarati Dao. They are giving this gem, spiritual gem of love, spiritual love, highest love they are giving. And for that, we need to develop attachment. We have to develop deep attachment. And Maharaj goes on to explain how bhakti is of mercy. Bhakti is dependent on mercy. Bhakti is independent. It is the Swarup Shakti of the Lord. And bhakti is got by someone who has bhakti in his heart. So we should not have these extreme attitudes that, no, I will just depend on mercy, or I will just do endeavor and I'll get. No, a balance between the two has to be done. And he gave the example of that Catholic Church, which had a propaganda that you can sin and pay and continue indulgence in sin. And then Maharaj went on to the discussion on Asat Varta. Asat Varta, he goes into a lot of detail, and yesterday we just started this discussion. We were halfway, but I'll summarize up till where we have studied and continue the discussion. Varta is news, and it is Asat Varta, which is compared to a Vaishya, because he steals Harani, our spiritual intelligence. And then Maharaj goes on to give an example of Akbar and Birbal when Akbar asked for Apsara. Very interesting story. His ugly wife He said, "This is Apsara, but a beautiful prostitute." She said, "This is a witch." So, a very nice way Maharaj explains about this Apsara. And then Maharaj goes on to explain that how this Asad Varta, Prabhupada is explaining that what is the phenomena which happens in the subconscious mind. It is like a photographic film. The moment we hear some Asad Varta, it's like it starts developing and all the subconscious desires start springing up. And that is why, just like in a studio, when a picture is taken, previously there used to be reels, the image is captured, and then in the studio in the dark, by processing it, they used to get the image. So similarly, when we hear this Asat Varta, these images of sense gratification from the subconscious, they spring out. How subtle this phenomena is. And yesterday I was explaining the graphic example of Ajami. He saw that scene of the prostitute hugged by a drunkard. He saw that image and he was very fearful, and he was going back. That image was getting processed in his mind. He was trying to remember the scriptures, but because he did not take shelter of the holy name or shelter of the Lord's lotus feet, this image, Dhyayato Vishayan Pumsan, developed, and it grew into a very deep desire. Sangat Sanjayate Kama, and that whole phenomena happened. So this is how powerful is the words and vibrations, material vibrations. They are the powerful developer through which memories of sensual pleasures emerge from the subconscious mind. And this is the film developer of our subconscious mind. So we should be very, very careful how it is working. And I don't know, in this class or in some other class, I mentioned that especially while taking prasad, we should just honor prasad as Krishna's mercy. And whatever it is, however it has come, if salt is less or whatever it has been honored by Krishna, we have to just accept it. But usually, we glorify the prasad because it gives satisfaction to our ego. Or we criticize the prasad. Why have we done this? Why have put so much karela today? Why have we made fried items? Because I don't like fried items. And today I've made sweet rice. I like sweet rice. So you glorify the cook. So these are the two extremes the mind can go. And that's why we should be very, very careful. And usually when we sit to take prasad, and we start discussing, oh, last time we ate this fruit salad there, and we ate this in that temple, and this and that temple, although it seems like a devotional talk because we are talking all about prasad, but actually it is a form of asadmarta. This is how we should be very, very careful. Maharaj will come to that now very soon. Now, yesterday I mentioned that moment you see such an image, and before it develops, the mind in the subconscious develops this image, we should immediately expose this image to the sun. We should go and confide to a devotee or a spiritual master, or we should immediately take shelter of the holy name. And then Maharaj also compared how when we chant the Hare Krishna Mahamantra along with the Bhakti Lata Bij, there are these other upashakas which grow. And hearing and chanting about mundane things will water that germinates the seed of material desires. So these upashakas, sound is linked to material enjoyment. When we hear that vibration, it evokes a desire in us. And Maharaj gives an example. The sound of advertisement of Pepsi, for instance, makes us feel like drinking Pepsi. Prabhupada, if you remember, he started his Bhagavad Gita lectures in the 26th Fifth Avenue, the Matchless Gift. And these were very new hippies who were all drug addicts, musicians. They used to come. And Prabhupada, right at the beginning, when they started taking to the chanting of the Hare Krishna, when Prabhupada was giving a lecture, the ice cream bell was ringing on the door, on the road. The ice cream cart was moving. And Prabhupada immediately pointed out, so this is Maya, he said. Moment you hear the bell, then that sound will enter the consciousness. Immediately it will ignite a desire. Oh, ice cream have come. Let me buy the ice cream. So this is how subtle is the phenomena. So let us now continue our discussion further. Using the same process, Shravana and Kirtanam, the seeds of material desires grow rapidly in our heart. Therefore, Raghunath Das Goswami states, Asadvarta Vaishya. We must stop listening to the news of the world because otherwise these images of material pleasure will be constantly growing in our subconscious mind. Krishna also speaks the same thing. This is Bhagavad Gita 252. Yada te moha kalilam buddhir tarishyati tada dhantasya nirvedam shotasya shutasya cha. Now, this verse is a very, very important verse, and we need to understand this verse. Krishna is saying that how do you know that by performing Nishkama Karma Yoga, uh, you have come to a point where Nishkama Karma Yoga has matured and you're on the Sita Pragya stage. No more in the subconscious mind or in the subtle body, there are desires for sense gratification. The subtle body is completely purified. When? Yada. When? Te moha kalilam. When you come out of the illusion of the dense forest, buddhi vetitarishasi. When as your intelligence has passed to the dense forest of delusion, and you become tada gantasti nirvedam, you become indifferent to it all. Shotasya shutasya cha. What? All that has been heard and all that is to be heard. So we can hear about sense gratification in two ways. Which are the two ways we can hear sense gratification? Which are the two ways we can hear? Two sounds can come out for sense gratification. Which are the two ways? Anyone? Anyone knows? The two ways are, one is through the external. Yes, Janardhan Kabrapuri, let us see. Jagdishwar Proji. I just gave a hint. Let us see you complete it.
Yeah, Alex. Externally, we hear and we see, and internally, we contemplate on that.
Yeah, externally, when we hear through others or any other sources, and internally in the subconscious mind, we hear the mind's voice. Suddenly, a desire might pop up because the impressions are there. So, when you become indifferent to it completely, and the next verse is mentioning, in the next verse of the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna is mentioning that, samhado achala buddhi. Shruti vipra pratipannate yadha stasasi nischala. Nischala means, you're unmoved. The intelligence is not agitated. Hearing sense gratification from either the external source or internally from the samhado achala buddhi. The intelligence is now completely spiritualized and working under the dictation of the soul, not under the dictation of the mind and the senses. That time you have attained yoga, Krishna says. Then you are a sthita pragya. So Maharaj is explaining this here, the same point. When our consciousness and buddhi or intellect go beyond the boundaries of this material world, or when we are free from the illusion of this material world, then shotasya shutasya cha, we remove the desire to hear this Brahma Katha. So, moment you hear Grama Katha, you should feel in your heart, some kind of irritation. Not exactly irritation, you feel indifference. And especially as you advance in spiritual life and you become a preacher, when others come and glorify that, your spiritual talks were wonderful, I'm very inspired. And when you hear this nectar, in your ears and you feel inside that this is like poison, then you can say that you're indifferent to it. We have to train our mind in accordance to what Raghunath Das Goswami teaches us in the fourth verse and how he has explained to the mind what we must meditate and focus our mind on. So we should focus our mind and meditate on Braje Radha Krishna, developing deep attachment. And the obstacle is Dhamba. So Maharaj is now going to bring out that. The essence of all these appeals to the mind are, as Raghunath Das Goswami says in the very first verse, Sada Dhammam Hitva, to once and for all cast away this pride that is manifested in our life as the false ego in its various forms and guises. This Dhamma or arrogance, the attempt to lie to God and to ourselves, spoils our life. Therefore, appealing to the mind, where an infinite number of intricate self-deception mechanisms are contained that enhance our pride, Raghunath Das Goswami instructs his mind to eradicate false attachment. It's only because of pride that we are attached to false things. Moment pride is gone, then we become attached to Radha and Krishna. That is the sign of true humility. Now Maharaj gives explanation how this false attachment grows in this material world. In this world, we easily develop affection and become attached to various things. But mostly we grow attached to what gives us pleasure or that we can exploit. A woman may be very attached to her husband if he can be exploited. If he can't be exploited, she is not so attached to him. But the meaning or the principle that lies behind this attachment is the desire to dominate or rule over. So this one should be very, very, very careful. And I'm just explaining from the Purushottam Yoga what Prabhupada has to say about this. Last verse of the Purushottam Yoga, in the last paragraph, Prabhupada says that while performing devotional service in the association of pure devotees in full Krishna consciousness, Prabhupada is saying in the association of pure devotees and in full Krishna consciousness, there are certain things we require to vanquish altogether, Prabhupada says. And that is the weakness of the heart. The first fall down is the desire to lord it over material nature. Then one gives up the transcendental loving service of the Lord. Second weakness of the heart is one increases the propensity to lord it over material nature and becomes attached to matter and position of matter. One is the propensity to lord and then increase that propensity by more and more. Ye dil mange more. So this is the same point Maharaj is making here. Dominate and rule. Therefore, in the very first verse, Raghunath Das Goswami advises mind become attached to that in relation to which even the thought of enjoying will not occur. Will not occur. Raghunath Das Goswami explains that as a result of association with saintly persons, Rati Ankur appears. Rati means attraction, or it is also bhava. Ankur means in the form of a seed, appears, which means the seed or germ of spiritual attachment. Rati can mean attachment, attraction, or Rati can mean bhava also, but it is attachment here. However, when a person begins hearing or repeating empty and meaningless talk, nothing is left of this spiritual attachment. So that Rati Ankur which has happened just by hearing and doing Asat Varta, that attachment is gone. We are squandering the precious intelligence that we have. Our entire life follows our tongue. What our tongue speaks about, there goes our consciousness. So where does Rupa Goswami elaborate more on this point? About whatever the tongue speaks, the consciousness goes there. Where does Rupa Goswami discuss about this? Anyone knows? Yes, Jagdishwar Prabhuji.
Vacho Begum.
Yes, Jiva Begum. Vacho
Vacho
Begum,
Begum.
Jiva Begum. Yes. So our tongue is like a rudder of a ship. And the tongue is such a powerful thing that just like the rudder, when you turn, it can take the direction of the ship in one particular direction. If the tongue is controlled, it can take us back to Godhead. But if the tongue is not controlled, vibrating material vibrations, then it will take our consciousness down. In fact, I don't know if uh, many devotees are aware, when we speak and the talk what we speak reveals our level of consciousness. And based on that, the more we talk, especially mundane things, it has a direct impact on our consciousness. Our consciousness starts gliding down. I remember an incident once. I was going to a law college to deliver a lecture, and certain Mataji students, girls, they were just walking by, and the filthy language they used while talking, I just can't even describe it. you know, the kind of filthy language they used, I felt hogs are better or dogs are better because they don't talk, and they don't degrade their consciousness. But these people, by talking this kind of filthy language, they are so much degrading their consciousness more to animal level of consciousness. At least the dogs and hogs, they will get gradually elevated with the evolution of consciousness, but they are degrading to such a degree which we can't even imagine. So our tongue is like a rudder, and if you vibrate, vacho vegam, if you don't control your tongue, it can create havoc. And today we see everywhere in the world, big leaders, make some statements, and there can be wars, there can be riots, there can be communal clashes. It's all because of the uncontrolled tongue. And that affects the consciousness, and the consciousness degrades. So the tongue has to be only used for vachanu, gunanu, vaikunta kata, that will elevate our consciousness. As a result of worldly talk, even without our noticing it, our consciousness focuses on the mundane and the ephemeral. We think it is acceptable to gossip a little and perhaps talk about some devotees' difficulties in following the regulative principle. Srila Jiva Goswami explains that as a result of mundane talk, we first become indifferent to bhakti. Just imagine the subtlety, what happens. Because of this mundane talk, the first thing what happens is that we become indifferent to bhakti. And Vishnu Chakra Thakur, in his Bhagavatam commentary, mentions that the moment we commit offense to a Vaishnava, we fall in asatsang, he says. We fall in asatsang. So even the mundane talk, causes indifference to bhakti. In the Bhagni, we find the practice of bhakti to be a life preserver. We understand that bhakti is something that can save us from the ocean of material existence. But when we waste our intelligence on worldly talk, we become indifferent. Conversely, the taste for worldly news grows more powerfully. We can see that the so-called progress of humanity, especially in Kali Yuga, is the progress in the amount of worldly news. First, people wrote books by hand. Then they invented the printing press. First, to print the Bible. So the printing press was invented only to print the Bible, then mainly to print nonsense. Because previously people wrote down only what was most valuable. And imagine today, hundreds of millions of news and books and magazines is all printed, which is all nonsense, asatvarta. And Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur in his Uddeshamrit commentary also mentions this. That mundane people who want to speak about my story and mundane literature in the form of even Karma Kand and Gyan Kand is all because of not able to control the tongue, not able to control the speech. It's all Asad Varta. Then the radio was invented, but that wasn't enough. Then they invented the television. Television is another hotbed of Asat Varta. I like this statement of Maharaj, hotbed of Asat Varta. So many times whenever I visited the devotee's house and they have a television, when I ask them, how come you have a television at home? And they give a reason. What is the reason they give usually? Anyone knows what is the reason they give? Why we have a television? It's a standard reason and the standard answer I have got from many devotees whom I have asked. What is the answer? Anyone knows? Nobody knows. I think you all don't have television, that's why. The standard answer they give is this is for our children to watch some cartoons or all. But usually they also watch news. And having a television, one of the sannyasis was saying, is breaking all the four regulative principles. Because what happens in the television? There's all illicit, sexual activities, even the newspaper also. Then there is, from here, all other things will follow. Meat eating, intoxication, gambling, all these. So having a television is like, you cannot follow the four regulative principles properly. And finally, the most remarkable achievement of Kaliga, the internet. The very meaning of the word net means to catch, and it catches our mind and consciousness. There are statistics from 2013 that revealed that more than 100 people died from the internet simply because they could not stop. They forgot about eating, sleeping, mating, and defending, just surfing the internet for days on end. Recently, I did not read the news, but I came to know from someone that one Taiwan person, he was 3 days hooked onto the YouTube. He neither ate, drank, slept. And on the third day, he collapsed and he was admitted in the ICU. Somehow he survived. Just imagine he had transcended the bodily consciousness because of sense gratification. 3 days, nothing he had. So many people are dying because of this. Therefore, followers of spiritual path must remember Asabhata Vesha, Vrisija. They need to exercise extreme caution. Extreme caution has to be exercised. Srila Guruji Goswami says that when we commit an offense in our practice of devotion service, one of the effects of these offenses is that we become attached to the very things that destroy our bhakti. So, especially now, as Maharaj is speaking about offense, Prajalpa is there, which destroys our Shadavir Bhakti, Vinashati, Prajalpa. But when we commit offense, we become attached to the very things that destroy Bhakti. Now, any idea devotees have that, especially somebody who has been, in a particular field in the material world, and he leaves that, takes up to Krishna consciousness full time as a monk or whatever it is, and then starts practicing. And when he commits offense, what happens to him? What happens to him? Anyone knows? This is my observation and it has been true. And now Maharaj is also stating that. But anyone knows what happens when an offense is committed? Anyone knows? Yes, Virendra Yadav Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna, bro. Bro, in that case, he loses his taste in practicing his sadhana.
Yes,
He
that is he leaves devotion, but what happens to him? What happens to him? He was engaged in some profession, some material activity before. He left that, took up to Krishna consciousness. Because of that, he committed offense. What happens to him?
He goes back in same profession, Prabhu.
He comes back to that same profession. He comes back to that same profession. And I have seen many examples personally. I know one person who was a lawyer and he came in touch with Krishna consciousness and he became a very good preacher and he was a temple president and he committed a very grievous offense to his spiritual master. And the result was he had to leave devotional service and he went back to his same profession. And it's now past 30 years that he's back in that same profession. And when I met him, he was mentioning about it, that he was admitting it. So, and I have observed this in many cases. We become attached to our own previous things, what destroy our body. Many devotees love watching television, but it is the most dangerous invention. Perhaps we should introduce a fifth principle in ISKCON that everyone receiving initiation should follow: no watching TV. Please remember that if you want to attain Raga Bhakti, and attain Vraja Radha Krishna, this is a gross obstacle. We have to still, clear the subtle obstacles which are going to come in verse 5, 6, and 7. So if we can't even cross the gross obstacles, then where is the question of making any advancement? Mati Sarvasva Harani. Here Raghunath Das Goswami says that spiritual intelligence is completely gone. The most dangerous and despicable form of worldly news that completely destroys our spiritual intelligence or consciousness is when we begin criticizing others. In the 11th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam is a very important verse. Parasvabhava karmani yah prashamsati nindati sa ashu brashtate swarthat asyat abhiniveshita. There has to be sa ashu brashta asatyabi niveshita. Abhiniveshita it is. Satya. Satya abhiniveshita. So this is a very, very important verse and many devotees don't understand this verse. So I'm going to discuss this because of my own experience. Parasvabhava karmani yah prashamsati nindati. One who praises or criticizes. Sa ashu brashyate. He glides down because asat. His consciousness abhiniveshita is absorbed in that. Now let's see what Maharaj has to explain and then we will discuss some points. Krishna says, Parasvabhava karmani yah prasamshi nindati. When we start to either glorify or censure the activities or the nature of other people, we very quickly fall down and forget our true interests, swartha, as a result of mundane criticism and offenses. Now, my observation has been that even if somebody glorifies, that same person at some point will criticize you also. The one who has glorified you will criticize you. And the reason Maharaj is going to now bring out that. The reason is asat abhi niveshita. Krishna says because his mind is immediately devoured by the ephemeral. Our consciousness is devoured by this illusion and we forget what we truly need. This is the meaning of what is happening when we start criticizing others, even glorifying others. In this verse, Krishna also says that even glorifying others is bad because both are actually food for the false ego. As soon as I critique or reproach others, especially behind their backs, my false ego is nourished and becomes stronger and stronger. When we praise others, we often do so to receive some benefit for ourselves. So sometimes, this is my observation, and slowly I learned it that sometimes, uh, if a devotee friend of mine gives a nice lecture, I used to go and glorify him, but then he used to also go glorify me. No, no, your lecture was also very nice. So I found out that, I genuinely like to go and glorify him, so that he also glorifies me. So this is how, you are feeding your false ego. Yes, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Sorry,
Yes,
we may just miss it in the. So I just wanted to ask a small question on the same topic. But as we hear that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu used to glorify and the devotees, like as if he has 1,000 mouths. Definitely, he was pure at heart. We are not pure at heart, but we are told that once, since we are not pure, but if we practice glorifying devotees, and as you said, if we have this conscious in mind that are we also going for a sense gratification in terms of we need some glorification of benefit, but how do we find a balance wherein we glorify the Vaishnavas and at the same time we don't have this or we have it but we are able to minimize it over a period of time.
Yes. Now, this is a very important question, and I'll come back to the verse because para swabhava karmani. This is para swabhava. Now, as long as we are not on the spiritual platform, as long as we don't have spiritual vision, Vidya Vinay Sampanne Brahmani Gavi Hastini Sunicheva Sapaticha Pandita Samajashna, we cannot see the spiritual qualities of a person. So, whatever qualities we see, either because of our gross vision or the subtle mental vision, his nature is good. So, that nature we are speaking is of the Sabhav, of the Sabhav. And this is on the material platform. This is on the material platform. This is one important point to be noted. And that's why we are not on the transcendental platform and we have these extreme dualities of mind. That is, we like someone because, we like his lectures and that's why we glorify. And that's why the opposite will happen. Oh, this devotee doesn't give nice lectures, so we will criticize. So we are swinging from these two extremes. Raga Dvesha Vimuktestu Vishayan Indriyascharan Atmavasher Vidyatma Prasadam Adhigachati. Krishna, that's why saying Raga and Dvesh. There is attraction and repulsion. So as long as we are not on the transcendental platform, we cannot see the spiritual qualities of that person. So we see only para swabhava. So this is first point to be noted. And that's why one of the sannyasis was telling me that in the class itself on Nectar of Instruction that we should never glorify prasad. And it took me a few years to digest and understand the statement. Why he said that. And later on I came to know that if we glorify the prasad, why this prasad? Because I like dosa and the dosa is very nice. And he has made glorify dosa. So I glorify, oh, what a wonderful dosa I have made. And next day, if he makes some other sabzi which is burnt, then I will criticize also. So as long as these subtle nature is there, that sabhav is there, we can go to these extremities. Genuine appreciation from the heart, which is done very rarely, very rare. If you do it, then it is okay. And you can glorify others, not by directly glorifying them, going in front of glorifying. You can speak to other devotees about it so that he is also protected. So I remember in one lecture, His Holiness Radhanath Maharaj was giving a Sunday feast class, and he was mentioning about one of his servants, that he was so pleased with his service that he started glorifying the servant in the class itself. And Maharaj made a point that usually I don't like to glorify, because I've seen that they become proud. But this devotee is very exceptional, and he spoke 10-15 minutes in the class. And this devotee servant who was serving, he was assistant and assistant of Maharaj, and he were both taking prasad together, and we are hearing the live, lecture on the speaker. And this devotee did not understand whom Maharaj is speaking. He's speaking about. And Maharaj mentioned the name, and suddenly he was wonderstruck. Prabhuji, Maharaj is speaking about me. So Maharaj also made that point that very rare, I don't like to, speak, but, he's very exceptional and he spoke. So genuine appreciation from the heart, very rarely, occasionally, can be done. And that too, you should be very careful and thoughtful about it. So that is, but as long as we have the conditioned nature, we have these tendencies of praising and criticism, both which are feeding the false ego. So that is how we should be careful. Is it satisfactory to you, Prabhuji? The answer? Any other questions anyone has? Yeah, one quickly falls down and forgets his swartha, true interest, as a result of mundane criticism and offense. So Mahaprabhu is to glorify his devotees. Mahaprabhu can do that. And Mahaprabhu is to glorify his devotees in front of other devotees also. He is to do that. The reason is asat abhiniveshita. Krishna says because his mind is immediately devoured by the ephemeral. Our consciousness is devoured by this illusion, and we forget what we truly mean. This is the meaning of what is happening when we start criticizing others. When we start criticizing others. In this verse, Krishna also says that even glorifying others is that because they are actually food. Okay, we finished this. When we praise others, we often do it to receive some benefit for ourselves. Praising someone is also food for the other's false ego. For almost every person can be bought by flattery, no matter how renounced they are. Just mark this point. For almost every person can be bought by flattery, no matter how renounced they are. Now, Maharaj gives an example of this. When Abraham Lincoln, one of the Americans' early president, was a boy, on the way to school, one day he visited a blacksmith's forge. He went to the blacksmith and watched as he worked. It so happened that day that the blacksmith's assistant had not come. Seeing the boy, the blacksmith thought, let me make use of him. And so the blacksmith began to praise Abraham, saying, oh, what a clever boy. He hasn't gone to school. Instead, he has come here. This is where exciting things happen. What a good boy. Come, give me a hand here. Hold this. Young Abraham Lincoln started helping the blacksmith as the praise went on and on. What a boy. Amazing. I have never seen such an obedient boy. So our praise is also, there is some swartha. That is not, the highest swartha in the form of Vishnu. There is some personal swartha because we are not pure. Abraham Lincoln said, I spent 4 hours in that shop and I was constantly praised. I thought I would never escape from here. Since then, when someone praises me, I know that he needs something from me. Therefore, Krishna says, asat abhiniveshita. Whether someone criticizes or praises others, his mind begins to be devoured by the ephemeral. Such a person loses his spiritual intelligence. Both praise and blasphemy are based on the fact that we envy that person. So even when we glorify, that quality is what he has, that is also because of envy. And blasphemy is because of also envy. They are like two sides of the coin. We either want to praise and glorify someone or something material which is not really theirs, or we criticize them because of envy. Chaitanya Charitamrita explains the mechanism of how human consciousness focuses on matter as a result of prajalpa, and especially as a result of the false so-called pleasure we get from doing so. The result of criticizing someone is that our material desires gain strength and our false ego is nourished. Now, which is the classic example of the highest lesson to learn about criticizing in the Chaitanya Charitamrita? Where has Lord taught this teaching about criticizing? Which is the pastime which Maharaj is referring to? Anyone knows? Yes, Sunita Mataji.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. Is it Gopal Chapal's example?
Chapel, yes, that is also there. Especially the Meenakshi Mataji, yes. Yes, Mataji.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. Is this Ramachandra Puri criticizing
Yes,
Mahaprabhu for eating?
It is Ramachandra Puri. It is Ramachandra Puri. So we will look into that. The result of criticizing one is that our material desires gain strength and our false ego is nourished. Criticism is the best vitamin supplement for the false ego. Mark the statement. You can print it out and put it. Because as soon as we start criticizing, our material desires grow stronger. Srila Prabhupada explains this with the story of Ramchandra Puri narrated by Paramanand Puri to Lord Chaitanya. On his deathbed, Madhavendra Puri was experiencing the ecstasy of separation from Krishna, and he kept repeating the same verse that somehow or other he had not attained his Lord, the Lord of Mathura. He was crying, "Where are you, Krishna?" Ramchandra Puri approached his spiritual master and said, "Why are you crying? You are supposed to be a pure devotee. Krishna says of the pure devotees, Brahma Bhuta Prasannatma na sochati na kamshati." Krishna says that a pure devotee na sochati na kamshati, neither laments nor desires anything. You must just lie there and be in complete bliss. Ramchandra Puri explained that as soon as Paramanand Puri explained that as soon as Ramchandra Puri uttered those words, he committed an offense to his guru, because one is not supposed to give instructions to his guru. Guru Ravagya. The disciple should not be so stupid as to approach his guru and say, "You do not understand, you are doing something wrong." Instead of rejoicing in life, you are crying. Srila Prabhupada, commenting on the story, cites Jeev Goswami in his Bhakti Sandarbha, where he says, even for one who has attained liberation, as soon as one commits an aparadh, offense, his vasanas become stronger. In fact, it is mentioned in the Chaitanya Charitamrita purport that when one commits an offense, Narayan himself in the heart of that person implants material desires and the vasanas become strong. Narayan himself does that. Vasanas are the material desires hidden in our subconscious mind. In material life, the vasanas or the material desires have practically full control over us. So we are what is our nature. The vasanas are our nature, subtle conditionings. Some are good impressions, sattvic impressions, and some are sinful desires, which are called as vasanas. So we are all controlled by our natures. We are not on the transcendental platform in our constitutional nature, performing continuous devotion service 24 hours. The vasanas or samskars that are dormant in our subconscious mind become weaker as a result of spiritual practice. We chant Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. And what was once a problem no longer exists. Even such terrible habits as heroin addiction can be given up as a result of chanting the Mahamantra. And we know that. We have seen many people, drug addicts, alcoholics, they are able to give up just by taking up to the chanting of Hare Krishna. And many people, even the Alcoholic Anonymous Association knows, once an alcoholic, forever an alcoholic. So they who go and preach to give up alcoholism, they also later on at some point, they again fall victim to it because the vasanas are deeply there in the chitta and they are somehow subdued by preaching to the mind and intelligence. But because these vasanas are very strong, they again come out and they fall victim to it. But all these vasanas can get subsided or become weaker by chanting the spiritual practice. But when we commit offense, these vasanas will again come out. Srila Jiva Goswami explains that even if a person has reached the stage of liberation and is at the level of Jivan Mukta, as soon as he or she commits an offense, especially against a devotee and especially against a pure devotee, the strength of that offense is such that immediately out of nowhere, the demon of material desires become overwhelmingly strong. Please mark this, how deep it is. And especially, as I was mentioning, not only to speak about the Jivan Mukta in the Gyan stage, even if somebody has attained the stage of Prema, if he commits an offense, he can fall down. And in the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, Rupa Goswami elaborates on this in the Prema Bhakti chapter or in the Bhava Bhakti chapter, that somebody who is situated in Prema in the Madhuri Ras, if he commits an offense, he might fall down to Sakya Ras or Vatsalya Ras. And somebody who's on the Sakya Ras might fall down to Dasi Ras. Somebody on Dasi Ras might fall down to Shanta Ras. That is the gravity of committing an offense, especially to a pure devotee. And usually those who are attained bhava, they never commit offense anyone. Usually 99.9999%, they never commit offense. But this is the result. If you commit an offense, even from that stage, you can, glide down. Yes, Rasparani Mataji. Yes, Mataji. Second. Yes, Mataji.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji Dandavat. I have a question that if at all such a stage comes, that there is an offense committed towards a devotee and there is a fall down, and then what is the fate of that person? Because how can that devotee be revived? How can he come back to Krishna consciousness? And what does he have to do, or what others can do? Because if he's in that state, I'm sure he will not be able to realize. What is that other devotees can do for that person? How can we save that devotee?
Now, this is a very generic question, but let me divide it into two parts. Firstly, in the first few years of our Krishna consciousness, we don't commit offenses. We see everyone as devotees and we see ourselves as not devotees. And we feel the bliss and ecstasy in Krishna consciousness. And then as we associate the devotees, we start seeing faults in others, and others' natures and all. Then we start, our taste in Krishna consciousness comes down. So the tendency to commit offenses, whether it is Nam or Vaishnava, is always there. And that's why we get stagnant and we don't make much progress. If one is not very, very careful from the beginning stages. So this is there. And with respect to your question, there are two things which can happen. One is that when we commit an offense, if it is not severe, we should go and ask forgiveness and serve that Vaishnava in such a way that he is pleased and become free from that offense and nullify that offense. But especially when an offense is committed to a pure devotee, then it is very grievous. Of course, the pure devotees don't take offense, but if we don't take the remedial measures of genuinely asking forgiveness and serving in such a way that he is pleased, if he doesn't take the offense, but the dust of his lotus feet, because he has taken shelter of Krishna's lotus feet, Krishna doesn't forgive, and they will give the reaction. Although he is magnanimous by nature and he doesn't take that offense at all, so we have to, immediately take the remedial measures, which is mentioned in various scriptures. And usually, if the offense is very severe, we immediately get the reaction that we are out of Krishna consciousness. We lose the taste in Krishna consciousness and we lose our practices in Krishna consciousness very immediately. In many cases, I have seen, especially when an offense is committed to a pure devotee. That is a very extreme case. It's like a mad elephant. Immediately it will destroy the garden. So especially for pure devotees, we should be very, very careful not to commit offense at them. And for other devotees also, we should be careful. And in our dealings, if there is some offense, then we should immediately rectify that. Is that okay, Mataji?
Yes, Prabhuji. Thank you.
Okay. Sunita Mataji. Yes, 1 second. Yes, Mataji. Yes.
Krishna Prabhuji, Dandavat Pranam. Prabhuji, I had this question that how can we realize that the person has attained the bhava stage?
How can we realize that a person has realized or he has come to the bhava stage?
Yeah, he has attained the bhava stage.
The symptoms of bhava stage are mentioned by Rupa Goswami in the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. There are 9 symptoms. And one of the most first prominent principle is avyartha kalatvam. He doesn't even one moment waste his time in any material thing. He's always engaged in spiritual activities. Avyartha kalatvam is the first principle, is the most important principle. That means he's constantly, engaged in the service of the Lord. Either namagana sada ruchi. He's constantly chanting the holy names because he's got ruchi. So like that, these 9 symptoms are there. I don't remember all the 9. Krishna, Preeti, Vasati Stale. He likes to reside in the holy places like Vrindavan, Mayapur, and Nandi. And is always chanting the glories of the Lord by speaking Krishna Katha. So like that, these are the 9 symptoms by which we can understand that one has attained bhava stage. Okay? Yeah. So this is very important that we should know. And Jiva Goswami in the Bhakti Sandarbha discusses all that, and Maharaj is just paraphrasing his statements. When we commit an offense, our material desires emerge, yet we continue to think that in one way or another, we are devotees. We may continue to lead a certain way of life and maintain our reputations as devotees. These material desires in a perverted way are then exhibited in the form of new desire, criticism for others. Our material desires will manifest themselves in that we will be pulling down others again and again. There is nothing more unfortunate than the fate of a person who was following the spiritual path and who made offenses, and who, in order to compensate for the offenses, instead of honestly admitting them, starts criticizing and offending others. Actually, if you just reflect and think, this human birth is sudurlabham. Sulabham, sudurlabham. Sulabham means easily you get, because you have to naturally evolve through the 80 lakh species. And then in the 4 lakh species, you get human form, but you are mostly animal consciousness. And only when you take up to Krishna consciousness, then you are having the human form. So fortune, sulabham, sudurlabham, it is rare. The fortune begins. Brahmande Brahmite Kono Bhagyavanji, Guru Krishna Prasade Pai Bhakti Lata Bij. You have got this Bhakti Lata Bij. And after getting this, you will be the most unfortunate taking up to the spiritual path if you commit offenses. And after committing offenses, you don't admit, but you continue to commit offenses. So Vishwanath Chakra Thakur in the Madhurya Kadamini explains that when one commits an offense, just like you have burnt the heart of other person, and in Ayurveda there is a principle: if there is a burn on your body, you apply a cream or a leper, which also will burn you. So you have to first burn in the fire of repentance, that how rascal I am that I committed such an offense. So you have to burn in the fire of repentance, because you have burnt that person's heart. And after that, go and approach that Vaishnava and ask forgiveness. And if that Vaishnava's anger doesn't subside, you should continuously serve that Vaishnava in a pleasing way, by which he is pleased. And even if at that point, if he is not, his anger doesn't subside, usually what is our tendency? We'll think, what kind of a Vaishnava he is? He doesn't have any good qualities. So we commit more offense. We start criticizing more and offending more that Vaishnava. So instead of that, we should reflect, what kind of a rascal I am, that I committed such a grievous offense to this Vaishnava that, his heart is not getting pacified. That means I have committed a very grave offense. So I should go deeper into my lamentation. And in spite of serving the Vaishnava, if he is not pleased, then we should continuously chant the holy name and take the shelter of Nam Prabhu to become free from that offense. Otherwise, there is no other way to become free. So that is why we sometimes reason that, what kind of a Vaishnava is he? Vaishnavas are forgiving my nature. Why is he not forgiving me? So by doing that, we start criticizing more that Vaishnava. Unfortunately, someone who has committed an offense is again victimized by material desires. In an attempt to remove this material desire and to justify themselves and these material desires, they start offending everyone. And this is what happened with Ramchandra Puri. He first offended his spiritual master, and then he started going to all the associates of Mahaprabhu. And he used to, take prasad and criticize them. And then at last, he went to Mahaprabhu also, and he saw ants were crawling. That means he's eating sweets. What kind of sannyasi you are? So he criticized Mahaprabhu also. So everyone in Puri was really troubled by Ramchandra Puri. And Mahaprabhu, because, Mahaprabhu, how did he take it? Although, Mahaprabhu had not taken sweets, the ants were just crawling like that, but this is what he criticized. So Mahaprabhu reduced his food by half. And what happened? Ramchandra Puri not only found fault with the spiritual master, fault with all devotees, he found fault with the Lord also. And the internet connection got disrupted. The result was that Ramchandra Puri was bereft of the association, and he left Puri and went. Now Ramchandra Puri, did not have any illicit connection with any woman. He did not break any regulative principles. Nothing like that is mentioned. But just he was bereft of the association of devotees. So that is what Vaishnava Aparadh can do. So frankly speaking, when we commit find faults with devotees, we find faults with the Lord. Ramchandra Puri found faults with devotees, and slowly it went to finding fault with the Lord himself. So if we are finding fault with devotees, it indirectly means that we are finding faults with the Lord. If we are envious of devotees, that envy is a manifestation of envy towards Krishna. That is how subtle it is. When we follow the spiritual path, we feel that our consciousness elevates. And the more it improves, the happier we feel. But if we do not want our minds to again degrade to the material level, we should never sell our mind once more to the harlot of mundane talk, the prostitute of mundane talk, and especially material criticism and material praise. So next is, Kata Mukti Vyagra, which we will take up tomorrow. So one point here I would like to mention, the more happier we'll feel. I'm here in Vrindavan at the Krishna Balram temple. And my observation here is that all the new people who are visiting, not the devotees who are visiting our temple, in the kirtan, they jump and they dance, they are feeling the ecstasy, the happiness of Krishna consciousness. What is the reason they are feeling that? What is the reason? Anyone knows? Yes, Mataji.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, because at that point of time, there is no offense in their minds.
Yes, there is no offense towards the devotees. They are all deep-rooted there. It will come out when they take up to bhakti. But at that point, there is no offenses. And that's why they are able to experience the ecstasy in chanting for the play, dancing for the Lord, and they feel real spiritual joy and happiness. And my observation is that most of the devotees who are there, both the congregation and brahmacharis, especially the congregation also I saw, they're all morning coming regularly, but they are not, chanting and dancing in ecstasy. And I was wondering, what is the reason? The new people are experiencing the ecstasy. Why the ones who are practicing? And especially in the Dham, we should be very, very careful about Dham Aparadh. So this is the reason that, we feel happier in Krishna consciousness. Those who are devotees, they have to chant and be happy. But that and also, as I mentioned, you have to cross the Anarth Nivritti. Okay, now Kata Mukri, we will take up tomorrow. Any other questions or clarifications anyone has? Please carefully reflect on especially the contemporary commentaries of Bhaktivinoda Goswami Maharaj and Shivraj Swami Maharaj, because 500 years back there was no internet, no television, and if you know, Prabhupada during his time, His Holiness Giriraj Maharaj mentioned only 4 times he used a telephone to talk to someone on the other side of the country. One is for the Jew land deal, Maharaj was mentioning. And in some temple that time, there was this telex machine. And, devotees, where Prabhupada had come, there was a festival and a devotee typed a telex message to the other centers mentioning the news about this temple, what was happening. When Prabhupada came to know, he said, this is Prajalpa. And now, any incident happens in some temple, it's all out on the internet. Asat Varta. So how much we should be very careful about this Asat Varta. It is to be a thing which is reflected, because we will lose our attachment to Krishna. That seed, Ankur, Rati Ankur. Yes, Sunita Mataji.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, I had one question that I don't remember the context, but in Bhagavatam somewhere, I just have taken the gist. I don't know. I don't remember the verses or the context, but by genuine glorification of pure devotees, can we also get the benefits of that glorification, that is advancement in our devotional service. This was the gist.
Yes, as mentioned, when we meditate on the transcendental qualities of the pure devotees, we get 1/10, 10%, the same qualities, we will imbibe it. Now, again, this is on the, this genuine glorification is from the heart, genuine appreciation, and based on the transcendental platform, not based on our conditioning and to feed our ego, both in a positive or a negative way. If it is done genuinely, and it is a kind of meditation, we should do it. And if we do that kind of a meditation and not too much speak about it also, but if you do it as a meditation and meditate on the wonderful transcendental qualities of the spiritual master, then we also, get those qualities. And the other hand, when we, meditate on the faults of others, what happens is that, just like the spider's web, you try to catch it, you also get your hand also, the spider web will come. So you will also catch those qualities. Those faults will also come in you. So this is a double benefit you get of, finding faults in devotees. One is you lose your Krishna consciousness and all those qualities will come in. So yes, genuinely we should meditate on the transcendental qualities of the spiritual master, and that will, enhance our devotion. Yes, that's true. Is it okay, Mataji?
Thank you so much, Prabhuji.
Yes, thank you very much. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Sri Raghunath Das Goswami ki jai, Sri Manah Shiksha ki jai. Hare Krishna.